Welcome, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning into this episode of B&B with Ellie, Biohacking and Beyond. I am insanely excited to bring to the Philippine GNM GHK community a very well-known icon in the GHK English-speaking world. She not only teaches it, but she adds her own flavor and vast implicit knowledge to the mix, which has garnered her almost celebrity status in GHK, in my humble opinion. She is my classmate in the first ever English Freya course and the first ever English Shinpo course coming up in Asia soon. And her name is Dr. Melissa Sell. Hi, Mel.
My goodness, hello. Thank you for that very lovely introduction.
You're welcome. So, Mel, please share with us your origin story, how you got started in the field of health per se, and then how you got into GNM.
Yeah, so my background is I am a chiropractor, and I got into the world of health through working at a chiropractic office right out of high school. I was actually into musical theater before that, and I ended up going the route of I got a job. My mom was like, "You need to get a job," and I was like, "Okay." So I found this job working at a chiropractic office, and getting into that world changed my life. I started seeing really amazing things happen with people, that they'd start changing their lifestyle and get healthy, and it just awoken something within me, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. I am into helping people get healthy. I loved everything about it. And so I graduated chiropractic school in 2012 and began practicing right away. And so that's my background. And chiropractic is a very interesting field, and it's very rich in philosophy. So founders and developers of that profession wrote volumes and volumes of these green books. And the green books are all about innate intelligence and how the body is wise, and how the educated mind has only been around for a few thousand years, and how its wisdom pales in comparison to the ancient wisdom in the body. And so part of the chiropractic philosophy is that the body is wise, the body is always doing the right thing, the body knows how to build itself, it knows how to repair itself, the body is the master chemist, it can do everything. And so that is kind of where I came from. That was like my roots and my foundation. And my partner and I practiced just kind of how I was trained, as far as, doing adjustments and helping people to clean up their diet and remove toxins and kind of exercise and live this whole holistic, healthy lifestyle. And that was wonderful. And I loved it and still do love it. But there was a piece that was kind of missing for myself, and I saw with my patients that I was working with. And it had to do with more of the unseen. So, if we watch someone go throughout their day, you can see them put healthy food in their mouth. You can see them exercise, and you can see them kind of checking all the healthy boxes, taking their supplements. But you can't see what's going on behind the scenes. You can't see what's going on in their mind, how they're reacting, how they're thinking, how they're, internalizing the stuff of their life. And so that's what my career in life kind of took a turn into. Rather than making physical adjustments to the spine, my partner and I, we started looking at making internal adjustments to the way that you see yourself. And we developed this course on understanding your perception based on our own personal experiences, and getting into meditation and more awareness practices of like, what's going on back here all day long. And I just, for myself, I had all sorts of anxiety, and now in retrospect, unresolved conflicts and tracks and all sorts of things that weren't being addressed by the physical, eat this, not that, do these exercises, do this physical stuff. It wasn't fully being addressed. But when we started looking, and I started looking for myself at what I was thinking all day long and what was going on in my internal experience, that's when my relationships and patterns started to actually change. So we got really interested in teaching that to our clients and patients, rather than simply, again, just like the list of things to do and not do. At that time, there was a part within me. I'm like, I know that there's a bridge between this internal work and the physical stuff, but I wasn't sure exactly what that bridge was. So I started kind of looking into, the roots of like psychosomatic illness and things like that. And then one wonderful day, I was listening to a podcast about magnesium supplementation. We were giving a presentation on magnesium supplementation, and Carolyn Dean, the author of The Magnesium Miracle, was being interviewed. And I'm just listening, taking notes on this podcast. And she mentions German New Medicine. And I was like, hold the phone. What is that? I've never heard of German New Medicine. And I thought that I knew all the things, holistic, alternative health. And then I looked it up and my life was never the same. It was an immediate internal just knowing of like, whoa, this makes more sense than anything else I've ever studied, ever come across. I was really especially drawn to the embryological aspect, because then chiropractic school, that was one of the classes that I was just fascinated and mind blown by, is like how this body kind of weaves itself together in this intricate and amazing way, and how he is describing how each of the tissue layers function in a different way, depending on when they developed over our organismic history and how that intertwines with the brain. And I was absolutely just like blown away by it. And at that point, I was like, I think I'm going to be a part of telling everyone about this, because I'm like, I don't know why everyone and their mom isn't talking about German New Medicine, and that all the chiropractors aren't talking about it. I'm like, what? How did we miss this? So that's kind of how, and that was in 2017 when I stumbled across it. And ever since then, I just kind of studied it and drew out all the charts. And then I'm like, you know what? I need to tell people about this. And it was just a natural progression.
That's amazing. And I kind of identify with you in the holistic thing, like the supplement thing and the way of eating and everything. EMF is terrible for you, heavy metals and all of that, because this is like the topics of interest in the biohacking world. So biohackers are non-medical, they're just laymen that want to self-experiment and just want to try everything to live forever. And I do see some of your posts and you say, I used to tell people that this is bad and everything is bad, and we could actually cause more harm because of nocebo when we say that, oh, don't eat that, don't be in 5G, and don't, things of that nature. Is that something that you found to be true? And did you bust those myths over time?
Yes, that was, I would teach seminars, like huge. We'd had 200 person, people would come to the seminar, and I would teach about how bad sugar is. And I would give like detailed analogies of how sugar is like glass in your bloodstream. And I'm like, yes, this is really going to land with people. And so did people stop eating sugar? No, they just felt terrible every time they did and felt guilty. And, and so I was like, oh, I didn't realize. I was the person, I'd come home on break from school and I would take everything in my parents' cupboard and their fridge and I'd throw it in the garbage and I'd say, this is causing cancer and this is going to make you sick and this is going to make you die early. And, I thought I was doing God's work but now I'm like, whoa, I was introducing a lot of conflict. And I myself had a ton of internal conflict as a result of learning all of this great stuff. So one of the things, one of my huge stories as far as personal symptoms was acne. So acne was something that I dealt with as a teenager and in my 20s. And I'm like, oh, when am I ever going to get rid of this acne? And I went through all the different stages. First, the conventional model is it's just bacteria on your skin. If you wash your face really good, and I would use astringents and rubbing alcohol and, acid on my skin to like, okay, I just have to clear all the bacteria off. Cause like I would get certain images in my mind, like the Neutrogena commercial where they show the dirt and bacteria getting down into the pore. And I'm like, yeah, that's how it works. And if I just scrub, it'll go away. And no, it didn't. I would still have it. And so then when I started working at the chiropractic office, I read this book about milk, the deadly poison. I'm like, oh, it's dairy. If I just cut dairy out, and I would cut something out and it would get better for a period of time, but then it would come back, even though I'm not eating the dairy. So, there's another dead end. And so then I got into the gut health thing and probiotics and sauerkraut. And I was like, oh, if I just have my probiotics, if I just eat my sauerkraut every day, then I'll have clear skin. And again, it would like clear up for a little while and come back, even though I'm still eating my good stuff. Then it was the seed oils. And I was like, it's rancid oils. It's every time I eat out at a restaurant, the rancid oils, they're inflammatory. And so they inflame my gut and that causes my skin to be inflamed. So every time I ate out at a restaurant, I would get a breakout. And I was certain that that's what it was. And even when I wouldn't eat out and I'd get it would just boggle my mind. And then the blessed day that I saw the chart and saw the dermis and understood that feeling attacked or feeling soiled, that's the conflict behind acne. And it all became so clear. I was like, when I learned about seed oils, I felt soiled. I felt, dirtied every time I would eat them. And so that is what created this breakout cycle. And so now I went through every single progression. Now I see the whole entire time it's feeling attacked, it's feeling soiled, it's feeling defiled, it's feeling ugly. I'd get a zit and then I'd, have a conflict about this and I get one right next to it. And it's like, now it's so clear. So that for me was a huge one of noticing how an idea about food. So I learned, because not everybody who, eats seed oils has chronic acne, it's not a one-to-one. And that's one of the things too, that really landed with me about this paradigm is that what about the exceptions? How can people be, eating sugar and not have, chronic inflammation or chronic pain? If eating sugar causes inflammation, everyone should have it. Everybody who's eating this should have this. That is scientific. That makes sense. But again, with the inflammatory oils, people are eating them and not having acne. Because that's not a one-to-one, that's just one of a million theories. And now I see how unscientific and based on statistics, and it's not reliable. Whereas this system is so specific and so mathematical and reliable, it should be the foundation of what anybody anywhere is doing with health. And that just makes sense to me.
Exactly. And you could also look at it the other way. There are these biohackers and health gurus and health coaches, and they're dropping like flies, because of cardiac arrest and cancer. Oh, but you're fit as a fiddle. Why do you have breast cancer? And things of that nature. And somebody, recently just passed away in the Philippines who was an icon of the anti-vax freedom fighting movement. And of course he's not vaxxed, right? But then they're like, did he have a heart condition? He passed away from a massive heart attack, and he was wrongly imprisoned. And then he was given notice that he would leave earlier than expected. So that's conflict resolution. And then he passed from and all of these theories now about, oh, he was murdered in the cell and all of that. Oh, did he have a heart condition? But he exercises and he does keto and everything. And then on the other end, oh, but he does keto. Maybe that's why. And yeah, there's that side too.
Yes. And that was something also within that field, I thought that I knew. And that's, one of the things is I, through my personal evolution, have come out of a lot of dogmatic thinking. I come from like a religious background, and I was very religious about my chiropractic and health philosophy. I was like, this is the way that it is. And I was very rigid. And so to come out of that, to see, what, I thought it was absolutely right. And I've learned things now that have, adjusted my views. And that was something it was very unsettling when one of my health icons, one of my teachers and mentors, that out of nowhere would, oh, they've got brain cancer, or they've got, like you said, a drop of a heart attack or something. And it's like, hold on, they're doing all of the things that I teach. And this is what I say, if you do these things, you won't get this disease. If you stop eating this, you won't get cancer. You won't have, these conditions. And that was very destabilizing for my foundation, being someone who thought I knew. But in retrospect, it's like, we were missing a enormous piece of the puzzle. And Dr. Hammer's discoveries really do give us the answers for why those situations took place. And they all make biological sense. And that's where, coming past, and what I feel like we had to go through those, we had to go through that journey, had to go through that evolution in order to see, the different sides of these inside the paradigm, outside the paradigm, blowing our mind and getting to the point where it's like, okay, there's more to the story.
Yeah. And what I love about what you're teaching is that, how GNM, GHK can be so dogmatic in its own. And there are purists there that are just fighting to the death to protect Dr. Hammer's work. But, it's useless if you treat GNM, GHK like a cookbook where you're just looking at it and everything, but not applying it for life preservation or for the betterment or improvement of the biology. And what I love about your work is that you love to delve into other apply your knowledge and apply all that you know, because you have this background in embryology and chiropractic and all of that, and you apply it to that. And then you also give ways on how to resolve the conflict and how to look at it in different ways. And I love that about you. I mean, this is something that I think a lot of people are attracted to you about, and your work, especially us who are educators in training in GHK, we're in that box, and we want to get out of it. We want to get out of it, and that's why I follow your work.
Yeah, the application of the ideas, and that's the thing, is like you have this firm foundation. You need the firm foundation of the 5 biological laws, but when it comes to, human experience, and that's where, I have to look at what's my own experience been. And that's what I teach. I teach things that I have found helpful for breaking through self-devaluation or rigid dogmatic ideas and identity conflicts. And it's like, ooh, I thought about things in a certain way when I was wrapped up in a conflict. And it really is all about finding, a new perspective, because sometimes conflicts, the best resolution is a practical resolution. Can we change the environment? Can we simply, replace what was lost? Can we get out of this situation and into a better one? And that's the ideal. And that would be amazing when it's possible. But there are situations where I can't make that physical shift for whatever reason, for legal reasons. I love to tell the story of the woman I worked with who she had a major separation conflict because she got a divorce. She was happy about the divorce, but she had a child. And so having a child with a person you're divorced from, there's legal issues. And so while in a perfect world, her child would never have to see the ex and they could just go on their merry way, and she could, hold her baby close and the baby would never have to leave and go with this person that she kind of deemed, emotionally not great to be around. The law made it so that she, her child periodically would have to leave her, be separated from her, and be in an environment that she, couldn't completely control. And that was the root of this major separation conflict. So it's like, okay, you can't legally, physically cannot change the dynamic here. So therefore, you have to change the way that you are thinking and feeling and reacting to every little track and trigger around that situation. And so that's what she did. And she was able to resolve psoriasis, a major psoriasis that was just like chronic. And she did all the things. She was like a perfect kind of biohacking example of like the red light and the detox and the early morning sunlight and all of, the coffee enemas. And let's try, it could be anything. So she checked every one of those boxes, and still the symptom remained because the conflict remained. She was still in conflict around the separation. And once she pinpointed her tracks and how she was relating to it, and how, every time there was a text, every time there was, news about the child having, she would see, oh, it's my reaction right now. It's how I am, going through, and worst case scenario, and my automatic pre-program reactions to the separation. And she was able to change that through awareness, through seeing, through understanding what her biology, how it was intelligently, perfectly responding to the situation. And with that totality, she was able to change it and resolve her conflict so that it didn't have to be a track for her. But, and that's where, again, we have to be open to whatever works for that person. We have to see, if we can't change it in the most practical way, what's the next best solution.
Right. And I do the same thing as a trauma therapist. I always look at that. The very causal therapy is the very best. The first thing you do is just like try to reframe it, get into stoicism, logotherapy, and all of that stuff. But there are psyches that are extra sensitive that just can't get it. They're just too deep in their conflicts, and there's so much fear around it too. And it's just a mishmash of all these emotions that they do need support. They do need help. Right? I mean, Dr. Hummer passed away, and so did Helmut. Knowing this work, right? And it's just not enough. There has to be some sort of way to support oneself, to self-regulate. And we do it for life preservation. That's something that I love your work. I love what you do. I really resonate with it.
Thank you. And yeah, I mean, I do what makes sense. Again, what has been beneficial for me, the ideas, the perspectives, the paradigms that I have found, and it's all about, for me, it's all about freedom. It's all about, does this bring me a sense of peace and freedom? And when there's an idea that, comes along and it's like, ooh, this makes me feel more tense and more concerned and more worried, it's like, that is not the way. I don't want to interact with that information in that particular way. And so my whole thing is kind of teaching people how to find that sense of freedom within themselves, and knowing that there's always a solution. There's always a different way I could be looking at this. Am I open enough to see that? Can I kind of break down those barriers of how I've always done it? That's one of the biggest things. And that's what the nervous system loves. The nervous system loves, this is how we've always done it. This is what we've done up until this point, and we have survived. We're not happy. We are suffering, but that's not the priority. The priority is simply survival when it comes to the ancient biology. And so we have to take that understanding that our ancient biology is very averse to change. It's going to do what works, even if what works doesn't feel the best. And so I have to recognize that and realize that better is available to me. There's a different way that I could be navigating my life circumstances, that I could chill out, that I can not take this so seriously. And I do think that sometimes when we do take our ideologies and our problems, our conflicts super seriously, when we're super identified with them, often we will go to the grave with them. It's hard to break away from some of that rigidity. And I feel very grateful that so many times that my ideas that I thought were so true and I was so accurate, they proved to be wrong. And so that idea is like, maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe this conclusion, this scary or bad or depressing conclusion I'm coming to, maybe I'm wrong about that. Just introducing a little bit of uncertainty that the problem really is as bad and serious as I may have thought it was. And that, again, it lightens the load, and also bringing humor. I love when Helmut describes a conflict is resolved when it can't happen again, or when you can laugh about it. And so that's often one of my strategies when teaching and helping people. It's like, hey, can we laugh about this? Can we lighten this? How can you take this less seriously? And that's a very fun method for seeing where can we pull the pieces, pull the thread of this conflict and unravel it and just loosen up. I call sometimes what I do with people is like chill therapy. It's like, can we get you to chill out about this? Can you just relax and drop this and tell a different story? And so I have fun with it, because taking it too seriously and being too, regimented and being, really hardcore about it, I just don't think that that's very helpful. You know what I mean? If that was like the best way to go about it, and if that yielded the best results, it's like, all right, well, we have to be very serious. And it's like, I just don't think that yields the best results. I think being more playful and real and flexible in how you apply this knowledge. And a lot of people, they do get a little, kind of turned off or afraid because of, the intensity with which this is presented. And I get the intensity. So I get both sides of it. I get that, like, Dr. Hammer and kind of the pure knowledge is very valuable, and we don't want to water it down, and we don't want to distort it, because that's what kind of his opponents have tried to do too. Because if people knew about this, if people really got this understanding, everything would change. Like, what is it? 98% of medicine as we know it would just go away. We'd still need, the 2% for, intense emergency situations, but people would be able to manage their own health, which is their birthright, but as things go and people take advantage of our ignorance, they take advantage of the fact that we don't know this. So it is very important for the pure information to be undiluted and to, be delivered to the people. But as far as the application, I feel like there's a lot more flexibility in how we can apply it to our lives.
I love that. And in my community, I tell them, have a robust psyche and be unfuckwithable. So this is a term from the biohacking field from Vishen Lakhani of Mind Valley. Don't just say, fuck this, and just drop it. And then it won't have to land, and you don't have to, your tissues don't have to adapt. Right.
Yeah. Beautiful. I love the term anti-fragile. It's from a book from Nassim Nicholas Taleb is the name of the book is Anti-Fragile. And that's the whole concept of like that trauma, and that's the thing is trauma doesn't ruin you. trauma makes you stronger. Trauma gives you this kind of like these obstacles in your life so that, because every time you go through a biological program, you become wiser, you become more adapted to that environment. You're supposed to have something happen, learn the lesson, and then grow from it, and then have another, obstacle, grow from that. And so it should be this upward trajectory. Often though, we do get stuck in loops, and we want to get out of those loops. And with the awareness and with that kind of changing your energy and developing that unfuckwithable energy of that, what, I'm choosing to use this rather than be, it using me and it being on top of me. I'm going to use it and I'm going to go on top of it. So it's kind of like this judo move. So it's like a trauma came at me and it wanted to take me down, but I used that energy and I transmuted it. And so just giving yourself and just knowing that that's always possible, that I can transmute anything that's happened to me for my greatest benefit, for my good, so I can grow and that I can, teach others and model it for other people. And that's often where people find that conviction and the energy to get through something is like, oh, if I get through this, I can help someone else. And people love that feeling of sharing their champion story. People love stories of overcoming. They love when a person, like the story of Anita Morjani, people love to hear about someone who came right to the end, right to the brink, and everyone thought she was done. And she had this amazing experience that if you actually listen to her story, it sounds like she went into like a flying constellation.
Yes.
She was able to kind of like zoom out so big and get the solution to her major self-devaluation that she came back. And it's like, people love that. And so knowing that, you can use your own trauma, tragedy, adversity for that sharing with other people, I mean, that could be your legacy.
I love that, Mel, because as a trauma therapist, a lot of people come to me and say, oh, this happened to me and I blame that trauma for my difficulties. I blame this person for my difficulties. But when we transcend that and we look at constellations and we look at, well, your higher self, oh my gosh, I'm getting woo-woo. Your higher self kind of chose the people and the life situations that you were born with, you're born into, in order to get that constellation, in order to find your talent or your gifts for your mission. Then you would see them as sort of a blessing. Of course, I'm not condoning, child abuse, sexual abuse, and all of that. But, there's rhyme and reason, even in the chaos. There's still order in the disorder somehow. And I look at it as, hey, you have this big heart constellation. You want to serve others and everything because you felt double overwhelmed when you were a child. And this gave you that constellation that made you this person that wants to help everybody. And that's amazing. And there's so many people with big hearts that have changed the world. Or maybe you have, like what you said, a flying constellation. This is like the Imagineers, right? They're the ones that have this imagination and they find solutions before the problem even comes. And wow, that's such a blessing. But of course, if they're heavily scaled and everything, it becomes a little bit tricky. But still, to see constellations and as a gift brought about by trauma, because it's the only way, like what you said, it's the only way we can really improve. That it's kind of in biohacking, we call it hormesis. It's a stress that's put on the body in order for the body to bring out all of its good juices so that it can prevail and it can survive.
Yeah. And I think in a cosmic sense, and like you just look at, yes, it would be ideal for us all to be living in these beautiful, like the Germanische, it's all about this close-knit communities of people living in harmony with nature. That's one of the things I love about the historic nature of the Germanische Heilkunde is about the brotherhood, the sisterhood, the kinship, the family, this just beautiful support system and this shared holy healing knowledge that they have. The ancient Germanic peoples, they lived in harmony with nature. They didn't use money. They never loaned money for interest. They had no interest in big cities, and like the Romans would come in and they'd say, hey, don't you want to trade for this money? And don't you want to come to our cities? And they're like, no, we're good. We're happy here. We're all integrated and we're living in this beautiful, harmonious way, and we've gotten just so far from that. And that's what this is. We have to kind of do that full circle thing though, because what's a story? What's a book? What's a movie without some drama where this beautiful, wonderful organic system where it's all working in harmony if it just was like that forever, we're like, okay, this is a beautiful, wholesome movie. Where's the spice? Where's the drama? Where's the conflict? Where are the constellations? And so now we're at this point where we see just kind of the destruction of this harmonious way of living. And now we want to get back to it, so like here I live, I've got like a mini ranch situation. We've got a cow, we've got 4 ducks. We just went to visit our donkey that we just got. So we were like, we're trying to get back to that wonderful, wholesome, self-sustaining farm life. And so many people are, because we see city life is one thing, but it doesn't yield kind of healthy integrated people as did living off the land and being more in tune with nature and more kind of knowing everyone in your community. Like dropping your children off with strangers, we've learned isn't that great of an idea. And it doesn't do good things for the baby to be separated from its mother, right away. And we've learned that lesson. And I think that now people are ready for, we're ready for coming back to like how our biology developed in these smaller, communities where everyone shares the same values. And I think it's a beautiful thing to go full circle.
Wow, thank you so much. And I know Buttercup is the cutest thing in the world. I see her in your posts. When you said that, and this is the land called Germania, right? Or something like that.
Yeah.
And it comes so full circle for me hearing you say that, because in 2010 I landed in this place called Oroville. So apparently there are these utopian cities already that are kind of like Germania, and it's off grid and they're completely sustainable. They use solar power, toilet composting, permaculture, and all of that. And it's a whole community. And it's called the City of Dawn. And it was established in 1968 with soil from about 160 countries. So it's about unity, and it's about all of that coming together. And there are Germans and French and Japanese. There are very little Filipinos. I don't know why. I think Filipinos don't like Indian food, but there's Americans and, all living together. And I lived here. It was called here. It's based on the teachings of Sri Aurobindo, who taught about the supramental, the higher self, the yoga, the life as yoga. And his spiritual partner, Mira Alfas, was a French lady. And she put it up posthumously. And now it's a thriving city with 3,000 plus inhabitants, and it's like its own country. And for me in 2010, I just came from Vancouver. I just left Vancouver and I went to India, and I'm like, what the heck am I doing here? I didn't know. But in retrospect, when you connect the dots, it now makes super sense, and it matches that vision of Germania. I mean, it's like the future of humanity.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's amazing. How interesting. I didn't even know this place existed. But yeah, I know that people are, creating that, and that they have that vision to live in a way that makes sense. Because when you just look at the way people are living, it doesn't make sense. It's not integrated. It's not in tune with our biological way of being. And that's really what this amazing work of Dr. Hammer, the biologic, doing what makes sense for life. It's like the system we have is illogical. It creates illness. It is designed to rip us away from our nature from the moment a child is conceived. I mean, they've even hijacked the conception process through, artificial insemination and all of the things that we're doing, all the kind of like weird science experiments of even bringing life into the world. And then every stage of the process is micromanaged, and conflict is introduced through all of the testing and all of the ultrasounds, and then the birth process itself. It's like it's illogical. It's indoctrinating us into this system that has to cause conflicts, because it's hard to be a biological organism in a hospital, where everything is looked at as an emergency. We're separating, we're cutting cords, we're washing babies, we're putting hats on their heads so their moms can't connect fully and smell them, not to mention the C-sections. It's like, that is really where that's my biggest passion, is to share this with the young women, the young mothers, so that they understand that every little thing that happens is setting up their child either for this peaceful, connected, regulated, calm nervous system where they can trust the world that they're in, or they feel disconnected, distrustful, and they have this underlying sense. So many young people today, you just talk to, and so many have anxiety. They just have this distrust of everyone and everything. And then it's like, okay, well, how were you brought in? Like, what was going on during your gestation, during your, your first year of life, like when you were born? If you were taken away from your mother, there is a distrust of everyone. It's like, this place isn't safe. And so getting back to creating these safe bonds between the mother and the baby, and it's all biological. I mean, in the biological way, you wouldn't be separated from your mother up until age 3 ever. You would just be with her. You kind of be one unit until you're able to feed yourself and do more things on your own, and then naturally you'd want that separation. But so many children, because of society and the way things are just forcibly separated from their home, from their safety, and they go their whole life with these conflicts and constellations because of parents are well-meaning. Nobody ever means to give their child a constellation or a major conflict. Everyone's doing the best that they can, given the information and the resources available to them. But again, the books that we read and the information has said, yeah, it's fine to let your baby cry in the other room. And they're like, oh, these are the experts. They wouldn't tell me something that was wrong. And so our ignorance and innocence and our lack of biological understanding for ourselves and outsourcing to experts really has been our downfall. And that is what has caused this big mess of people, handing their children over to doctors to inject them with who knows what and hold them down and do all sorts of, heinous procedures under the guise of, oh, this is healthy or this is clean. And people are really waking up to that. And yeah, the more that you understand the GHK, the more you see, ooh, we wouldn't do that. We'd stop doing that. We definitely wouldn't do that anymore. That doesn't make any sense. And so we're really just cutting out all of this modern intervention that has only caused more trauma and separation and fear in children.
That's right. Lately I've been obsessed following this IG account, and I'm not sure if you know, it's Badass Birth Mother. And she has
I think I've seen her.
oh my gosh, and it's all just water birthing, and it's all free birthing, and it's even breech babies are natural birth, and it's beautiful with all the blood and all the guck and all of that. I just think I'm obsessed with it. It's just so beautiful. Nature is just a miracle in itself. And that's the way that we need to birth. Really. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
And I love what you said about the parents and their constellations. And I know because I'm enrolled in your language of adaptation course, and you refer a lot to recall healing. And I looked into the book, and I saw Project Purpose, and it says there that the psychological conflicts of the parents become the biological conflicts of the baby. And so we should explore that. So let me know, what are your thoughts on that? What are the things that you found fascinating about it?
I found very fascinating about Gilbert Renaud and his work of looking at more than just what happened right before the conflict. What happened during your gestation? What was going on with your parents before they even conceived you? And then what was the conception like? What was, those 9 months of your gestation? And then how did you come into the world? And that everything has been programmed by that nervous system each step of the way, to the point that when your parents have unresolved stuff and they come together and they make you, that it makes sense biologically even that your biology would be an answer, would be a solution to stuff that's unresolved within them. And that, really just makes sense to me. And then when you look at people's lives and you start asking different questions and you start seeing, how is this a solution? How is what this child is dealing with a solution to something that we just haven't put those pieces together yet? And the family tree, I think, is very important to look at. And at first, and I do think that with Dr. Hammer's work is because the family tree and going beyond that one individual's experience, it's harder to quantify that in a systematic way. And so, but when you bring that into the knowledge of the 5 biological laws and you bring that together to look at one person, their life they didn't just come down here, and just materialize. They came through a lineage. They came through people with conflicts who came together for various reasons. And sometimes the child, is conceived to keep someone home. Sometimes the child is conceived to keep the relationship together, or was conceived on accident, then that matters. Like whether the child was wanted. When you think about something like a self-devaluation conflict, a feeling like I'm not good or I'm not needed in this world, like, well, were you wanted when you were conceived? What was the first reaction? And how that is even programmed into how you react in your life. And sometimes bringing this, one of the big takeaways from the recall healing work, and I've just begun in the last 9 months or so really exploring it, is by getting the story out of the darkness and getting the story of the ancestor that suffered, that went through something that was never talked about. And that is one of the hallmarks of a biological conflict, is the isolation aspect of like, I can't tell anybody about this. I can't talk about this. This is unspeakable. Gilbert in his seminars will say, like, find the secret, like what is the dark, scary, embarrassing, dirty secret that nobody talks about in this family. And when that is brought out into the light, often, kids will have whatever they're dealing with will get resolved when somebody is able to voice and speak about the stuff that has been unspoken for so many years, or someone wasn't able to acknowledge. And so it's the acknowledgement. The way that he describes it about the quantum field, even, it's like when you look at it, it has to change. If we don't look at it, it repeats on a pattern and it keeps coming up in a cycle. And that's something very interesting too with recall healing is, when a symptom develops, and if you are having trouble finding like, oh, I can't find, I see that maybe this was the trigger for it, but was that the conflict? You look back in your timeline, you divide your age in half, and you divide it in half again, and you keep going back, and inevitably you'll find something that kind of like planted the seed for this conflict to kind of come out in your life at a later time. And I've just seen that it proves accurate. And that's always my thing, is like, okay, this is a cool idea. This, makes a lot of sense. Does it work in practice? And I'm finding that like, there's always a deeper story, deeper than, oh, it just came out, I just had this of this, this rash or this pain. And it's like, okay, well, is it really about what's happening now? Or was it something that happened way, way back, even during your gestation, like the 3rd month of your gestation? Is that when this program got initiated in your psyche, and that now it's just coming out because it was triggered at the right time? So it's been very, very interesting to explore his experiences and findings and the connections. And so it's a very cool way to take the knowledge of the 5 biological laws and find more tools for application.
I love it because I'm a childhood trauma therapist, so I have adults who are close to 60 and everything. We look at their childhood, what happened the first 7 years, and before puberty and all of that, because of we know about Dr. Hammer's work and all, but I really loved about Gilbert Renault's work is, I have a niece who had leukemia at 7 months, and you would look at leukemia as the resolution to a self-evaluation, right? So, but she's 7 months. Why? How did she even know what self-evaluation is? And things of that nature just seem to spring up. It's like, oh my gosh, she had all of these black and blues and everything. Of course, she went through chemo and everything. But, it's something that if you just look at the pure work of Dr. Hammer, you wouldn't really know where it came from. For toddlers, there can be, like, there's another sibling that has more attention, and, mom is no longer loving me anymore. And then mom finally said, oh, I love you just as much. And boom, leukemia comes, right? But for a 7-month-old, how did that happen? And when I read that, it's a self-evaluation possibly of the mother, because she was actually born out of IVF, because my sister could not conceive. And the father, in reading Recall Healing, it said something about, I'm not able to take care of my loved one, something like that. And that may have been the thought seed or thought form of the father. And it came together, and then, the biological conflict, the child had to resolve that part. And it's amazing. I mean, I think it's just so beautiful. So thank you so much for bringing attention to that. But my question to you, Mel, is if you don't know your family tree, like for me, I have no idea how to find out about my ancestors. I have zero idea. I only know my family and that's it. Can we still use recall healing or biogenealogy to find conflicts and healing throughout?
That's a great question. I mean, I personally don't know a ton about mine either. And so I think like with your own intuition and kind of like just call and it would maybe be considered more a little woo-woo energy work of like, if there is something, that's coming up in my life that seems like unexplainable by my own life circumstances, like what could it be? I think just like through creativity, I mean, it all exists in the energetic field, like in the quantum realm, all of that whole story is available to you in some way. And so I think that, kind of enhancing that intuitive capacity to have insights and to make those connections and to, and seeing other people's stories too, often, in like group work where people hear other people's stories, something, you may not need to hear the story of your family. You might need to hear just someone else's story that's similar, and some nugget in that will land for you. And so if there's something you need to see, so that's how and even with people who are like, I don't know, I do not know my conflict. I have no idea. I have no memories of my childhood. I've got lots of separation conflicts. And they start kind of getting panicked or worried that I'm not going to be able to resolve my conflict. I would address the familial ancestral stuff in the same way that I address that, which is open your intuition, quiet your mind. If there's something you need to see, your psyche, your subconscious mind knows how to deliver it to you. Haven't you ever had just a random flash or an insight or an inspiration? And that's the thing too, even about conflict resolution, is it's not like if I just squeeze my brain together, and this is where we get into the realm of like getting too, psychological about it, because conflicts really they just happen. Conflict resolution just happens. It's like an intuitive, innate thing that occurs. And it's almost like you can't squeeze and like work too hard for it. You have to open up and let the solution fall in. And so that's one of the things that I encourage people to do, is just create that space of opening. It's like the analogy of like, oh, if I'm, like an old school telephone, if I'm calling and I'm saying, I need a resolution, what's my solution? I need to figure this out. And you're calling, and the other line can't get through. You have to hang up the phone. It's like, okay, you know what you're looking for. You're looking for, the root of this separation or this indigestible morsel, and you haven't, you can't intellectually figure it out. Hang up the phone. Spend time in silence, spend time in nature and quiet, and just, be open to the solution, the insight, the memory, the thing that you need to remember, going into the feeling. There's so many things that you can do. So never, and that's the thing, if you find yourself feeling stuck, if you find yourself feeling despair or frustration, you're on the wrong path. Like lighten up, know that even if I can't see it, the solution is available. Even if I don't know and don't have connections to those people, if there's something I need to see about this story, it's going to be revealed to me. And that's a big thing too, is like overcoming the doubt and the fear. And Gilbert does emphasize that as helping a person to overcome the doubt that I can figure this out or that I can heal, because it is often that doubt and that negative expectation that because I haven't fixed it yet, because I haven't resolved it yet, because I haven't figured it out yet, it can't happen. And removing that idea that it can't happen, it just hasn't happened yet. And always being open each day, just seek to see one more thing about yourself, connect one more dot, have one more insight. And even if that's just noticing your resistance, noticing the frustrations that come up, even that is part of kind of deconstructing this force of conflict in your life, just unraveling it a little bit at a time. And so that's how I approach, if you don't know, it's fine. It's not a big deal. Absolutely okay. If there's a story in your mind that, oh, that means I can't figure this out because I don't know this information, throw that idea out. Because if it drags you down, if it makes you feel worse after hearing it, oh, some people resolve their conflicts by knowing their family tree. And you're like, I don't know my family tree. I can't figure my life conflicts out. No, forget it. You don't need it then.
I love it. You're such a breath of fresh air. It's so amazing. I'm sure a lot of people will now have a lot of confidence in themselves that they'll be able to find it because it's within them. The answer is within them. The subconscious knows all the answers that you need in this lifetime. So Mel, I know you do consultations. And I know a lot of people would love to line up and do consultations with you. What are some of the great big stories, GNM success stories that you can share with us?
Yeah, a lot with skin. So skin, that seems to be one of the ones that I've seen great success with. I did just put out a podcast of someone who resolved another psoriasis case, and she, she worked on it. And again, it's like when it lands for you, you can know about GNM and we can like do the session. It's like, but it's got to really like sink in to your, she was in her closet one day when it finally sunk into her psyche that it's like, who I was and what was happening then can't happen now. And so we had our session like months and months before she had the major resolution to her conflict. And so, yeah, so skin things, acne, psoriasis, eczema, those are the ones I've seen wonderful results with. Period pain. So cyclical. For me, it's like, it's the things that I'm doing all the time. It's my reactions and re-engineering your reactions to the tracks around your partnership, your sexuality. So that's been really successful with women with period discomfort, chronic physical pain, and that was like a huge thing for me coming from the chiropractic background. Is like, I just like would, if I, it could adjust you, I thought that would fix everything, but people would still have their pain. I remember a particular woman I worked with, her shoulder was just frozen. And we tried all of these things, all this physical stuff. And in retrospect, I'm like, ooh, I wish I would have asked her about her relationship with her partner, because it was like her dominant side. And I'm like, that could have, yielded such different results for her because it wasn't a physical thing. And so, yes, I'm seeing people with chronic physical pain or arthritis that when you start to see, because self-devaluation for me, that's one of those ones that just pervades everything. And when you have self-devaluation, you tend to see everything through the lens of self-devaluation. Bite conflicts, I'm seeing great results with bite conflicts, chronic sinus issues. There was a woman I worked with and she had a chronic sinus issue. And when we got to the core of it, it had to do with suspicions about her husband. And her husband, she just kind of described him as a little bit of a more flirtatious man, but she would make little jokes when he would come home every day about like, oh, like, who were you, hanging out? And so it was always like this sniffing out, like trying to smell like and again, it was interesting because she knew that he wasn't being unfaithful to her, but she was keeping around that kind of little attitude she had about her suspicions. And so it was like, okay, can you drop that? And so she practiced, just dropping this. And I think the information, I hadn't taken the Freya course at that point, right? But that would have been really good stuff for her to start to see those masculine, feminine patterns and how she was interacting with him. And so great results with the chronic stink and sinus conflicts, digestive. Oh my goodness, when people have digestive things and start seeing the tracks around their indigestible morsel conflict, it really is. It's so beautiful. And for me, the goal really, because as far as unraveling and getting to the conflict, most of the time we're just working in your reaction to your tracks and you understanding like the big picture of this. And when it finally lands for you and you get to that, that big picture resolution, that's not something you can force, it's never a force. It's always about, let's cultivate an environment of awareness where I'm paying more attention, where I'm seeing how I'm reacting and how my body's responding to environments and people and thoughts. And can I just draw these connections? And so the success for me isn't when a person's like, oh, all my symptoms are gone. It's like, what I saw myself react. I made the connection between how my partner was speaking and what was going on in my body. And I saw myself able to make a new choice. And because I know that when a person gets that, whether or not you've figured out all of your tracks and you've resolved your original conflict, if you can start to make those connections and start noticing, I know a person's on that right track is when they're saying, I noticed and I saw myself and I made this connection. I'm like, okay, you're good. Because if you can keep building on that skill of seeing your inner landscape and noticing how you respond to things, you're well on your way to the resolution that you're seeking and the healing that you're seeking. That's like a done deal because the body takes care of that. You know what I mean? We don't have to micromanage the body. The body knows exactly what it's doing. You're the one who has to start noticing how you're interacting with your world and pull that thread of like, what is this actually about? Like, who is this actually about? When did this actually start? Is this really about, my husband in my 30s? Or is this about my relationship with my father when I was 5? It's like, who is this really about? What is this story? Like, pulling those threads, that early life stuff, and just trust that you're going to figure it out, building that confidence in the figure out ability of the situation.
I love it. I love it. And you and I were classmates in Freya, and I found Freya to be, even if I wasn't I'm not in a relationship, I'm single, but oh my gosh, it healed so many things retroactively. All of my past relationships, I have a sexual frustration conflict, and it healed all of that. And it's so amazing. Now I'm very open to finding one. But how did you find it? Did it help you and Steve, your relationship? And is it also helping your clients? Are you placing the teachings of Freya also in your work with clients?
Absolutely. And what it did was, as soon as I heard some of the ways he described things, because it's all about, the biology of love. And for me, there were concepts that I knew and was totally aware of as far as like communication dynamics. But when I saw the biological implications that I didn't fully get before that class, it was like, oh, it landed big time. So with the criticism thing, so the whole idea that when a woman criticizes a man, and this is a concept that we teach in our class, Awareness School, it's like this concept of an internal frame of reference. And I have, and this has been something that Steve and I have talked about a ton, is like, when I see from my point of view and my point of view only. And part of the work of awareness has been to open up and to see from other people's perspectives. And when Sasha taught about how, like literally like the male sees the world physically different than the way the female sees the world. And it was like, that is why it makes so much sense now when I saw, and, what was modeled for me growing up was like, oh, that, men have no common sense, or you can't see things the way I see it. And it was like, oh yeah, men, they don't see what you're seeing. And it's like, because their brains are designed to look for different things. They're specialized for, bigger picture than the woman. The woman, she sees her nest and her territory of her sexuality and her children. She actually has more of a tunnel vision than the man. He can see way more than you can because he's specialized in that way. So something about hearing it in that way really allowed me to see many of the principles that I was teaching and already like understood and believed in, but saw it in the biological context. And I think that's like the huge benefit of that course, is like really understanding that, again, comes from the roots of the 5 biological laws and Hammer, and learning to think biologically, because we've done so much in the realm of the intellectual world and built on this intellect on the intellect, but that is nothing if we don't have the biological underpinnings. And so that for me in the course has been helpful in my own relationship and our dynamic. And then obviously, like when I teach and work with people, it just allows, it's like, this is an opinion, this is biology. And that always trumps opinions. It trumps all the ideas in books. It's like, but does it line up with our biology? And that again is how Dr. Hammer's work has, is reorienting everything. All the different sciences, all the different realms need to reorient themselves around the biological foundation, because otherwise it's nothing. Like it has to be built on the biological foundation. And there's good stuff, in a lot of different fields, but we have to find the stuff that's in alignment with the biological.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. I swear. I have work with the special needs kids, like kids with autism, Down syndrome, ADHD. And of course, Dr. Hammer's work really applies here, but I find that it's not even the child that I do more therapy on, it's the parents. And so all of these mothers are all pegged for Freya, because you need to, of course, I coach them already with Freya. I need to say that, the child is mimicking, there are mirror neurons in the child, and they come to the world undeveloped because they need to sort of emulate the adults and learn about the world by emulating the adults that are taking care of them. And so when you think about mimicry, they're just trying to mirror the adults in them. So when you see the behavior of the child, then you kind of know, okay, what's going on what kind of adults are, kind of enveloping him at home. And so I do more work with the parents, I find, than with the child, or together simultaneously. And so I have these mothers who are now pegged for Freya in January, Freya Asian. Yeah.
Great. That's wonderful. And yeah, that's, I don't work directly with children simply because children don't want to work with me. It's like so when a person's like, oh, will you work with and I was like, no, I will consider talking with you, because it's like the child just wants to be a child and just, doesn't want to go to see, a coach or a therapist or whatever. It's like the child just wants to be a child. It's the parent that needs to understand and learn this stuff. And I'm sure the stuff that you do in your practice, you got a lot of cool things that I'm sure a child would really greatly benefit from. But yeah, it's like when the mother starts to see her patterns, when she starts to see how she interacts with that child's father and the things that go on. I had an insight recently about every conversation you're having with your spouse in the home with your children feel it. Even if they can't hear they feel the energy of all of it, and their biology is reacting to that. I spoke at a all women's event last summer, and the women are just asking all these questions oh, my baby, this is a huge thing. Little children with dental issues, and they're like, this baby is exclusively breastfed, or these young kids they don't eat any sugar, they eat totally perfectly. Even one of my crunchy mama friends from back in chiropractic school, she recently posted on Facebook, and she's like, holistic mamas, what's going on? What's going on with your kids' teeth? Are they, do they all have good teeth? And it was a mixed reply of some people are like, yeah, my kids, and a lot of them are like, no, we've done everything and our kids eat perfect, no sugar. And I'm like, fight conflicts. And so even if the child isn't having a bite conflict, they're like, this baby is absolutely, has no conflict, is never separated from me. A lot of moms also, they'll learn about the separation conflict and they're like, my child's never separated from me. And it's like, well, who do you want to separate from? Who do you want to bite? What do you have going on? What's unresolved? And again, the biology of the child is feeling your conflict. A baby doesn't even know that it's not you. You know what I mean? That's the whole beauty of that mother baby dynamic, is it's one organism, and even as Sasha mentions that in the Freya course, is like a woman is a woman and a baby, without the baby, you're just a girl. And it's that is this whole mother baby dyad. It's this beautiful thing. And so the baby doesn't even think of itself as different than you. So everything you've got going on, every, criticism of your partner that you want to bite him and you want to, baby's feeling that. And so if baby's got teeth issues or, is having some type of, who do you want to separate from? Who do you want to bite? And talk to the baby. And that is one of the things that Gilbert and Recall Healing does recommend, is telling the baby, if you were dealing with something during gestation, some big trauma that happened at month 3, and you've never talked about it, and we just don't think it's that big of a deal. If that got programmed into the baby, talk to the baby about it. When the baby's sleeping, say, when I was 3 months pregnant, this is what was going on, to unburden their psyche, letting a part of them know, just speak directly to their subconscious mind and let them know that this isn't yours. This had nothing to do with you, or I was scared. I'm trying to remember. It's not totally there, but basically it was about something that had nothing to do with the child, but the mother was dealing with this other conflict. But if, again, the baby's just going to assume it's about me. And so let the baby know, this isn't about you. It never was about you. I'm so happy that you're here. Whatever you need to do to allow that child's psyche to get that sense of relief. And often the kids, the problems will just go away. Their symptoms will just resolve simply because you spoke it. You got it out of the darkness. You brought it into the light and unburdened that child's psyche.
I love this. And we're not even speaking woo woo. We're just, thinking on a biological level. We're just thinking, it's not woo woo. It's just, well, we have the power to do that because the child will know, I love it. Mel, I know I've been taking a lot of your time, and I know you have so many courses. Please, please, please let us know about each and every course so that the Philippine community can enroll and learn more from you.
Yeah, so it sounds like it might be an early morning. So the next big thing we have coming up is our awareness school. So it starts, I don't know when this will release, but on October 16th. It's a 10-week program. We open it 4 times a year, and it's all about your perception. It's all about understanding the behind the scenes stuff that goes into why do I see the world in the way that I see it. So it doesn't focus specifically on teaching GHK, but I find it's a beautiful complement to anyone who's seeking to elevate their self-awareness. So I can see and pay attention to my reactions, my thoughts, the stories that I'm telling myself. Like, if, you know, a lot of people understand that concept in theory, but this helps give you very practical tools for actually seeing in real time what's going on behind the scenes. It's really fun. I mean, if you go on my YouTube channel, watch a few videos, if you like me and Steve and the way that we talk, you'll love Awareness School. So that is, it's 5 p.m. Pacific time. So I think that'd be early morning for you guys. And then also there's the language of adaptation classes every Monday. I do think that's like 2 a.m. for you. So you may not be able to join live, but you can watch the replay of that class. And it's all about just the 5 biological laws. And we go into, you know, I answer questions and base the classes based on what people want to learn more of. Currently, we're going through the scientific chart because I'm just like, let's read the scientific chart. Let's go through point by point what is in the scientific chart and then go through questions and application along the way. And then I do have a library of courses, the Resolve courses that Steve and I teach together. And it's all about perspective shifts. It's how can I see an identity conflict, a bite conflict, a separation conflict. We talk about different nuances related to every different conflict type. And how can I look at this differently? How can I soften? How can I bring more awareness to how this is operating in the background? And so yeah, on my website, if you just go to the courses page, you can scroll through and, you know, read through the descriptions and see if anything resonates. But my YouTube channel is a really great resource too. We've got years worth of videos on there. I mean, you can get a lot. I love when people go through and go through the YouTube channel. So like the, you know, the old videos, because there's a lot of gems in there.
Yeah, can you let us know? And then I'll include all of this in the show notes, but just let us know what your social media channels are, your website and your YouTube channel.
Yeah, it's all drmelissacell.com, YouTube, Dr. Melissa Cell, Instagram, all the same.
And Ever Better Life University is?
Yes, Ever Better Life University. That's where we host the class for Awareness School. Yeah.
Okay, I'm a student there and I'm very happy that I'm there. And also, Mel, I saw somewhere that you might have a constellations course, like a navigating constellations thing.
Yes, I taught that live, and I do have an online version in the works, but it's not ready yet. And so I taught a live constellation class in Vancouver with my Vancouver. They've got a wonderful GHK community in Vancouver, and so if you're ever there, you know, I can connect you with some really awesome people. But yeah, it's not virtual yet.
Okay. All right. So my final question is always, if you had a magic wand and this magic wand gave you the most ideal world in the place, what would that world look like?
Biological. It would be families, it would be animals living in harmony with nature, doing things that made sense, spending your days living with the seasons and learning about nature and our surroundings and how to, you know, live and grow and express creativity through our biology and really living in that harmonious way that I feel like we were all intended to live. And I think every day we're getting a little closer to that.
I think so. And I love that vision, and it's highly possible. It's highly possible to live that vision. Thank you so much, Mel. Oh, you are just amazing to listen to, and the way you explain everything is amazing, period. And I'll make sure that the Philippine community starts to follow you and learn through you as well.
Thank you for being a pioneer in the Philippines and spreading this message. And I just love your energy, and thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Bye, Mel.